The most complete killer the land has ever produced would probably be dead within 10 minutes of touching Subnautica 2's water, and not because something ate it. Take the single most feared land predator in the history of this planet, an animal built around roughly 9 tons of muscle and a bite that closes with about 35,000 newtons of force, and drop it into an alien ocean. Before a single Leviathan even notices it is there, the king is already in trouble. Its own body is working against it. I run the numbers on impossible matchups for a living, and this one flips the way most people expect it to go. On land, nothing in that alien world would stand a chance against Tyrannosaurus rex. Underwater, the same animal becomes one of the most fragile things in the sea. This is Survival Decoded, where I take a real apex predator, drop it into a world it was never built for, and work out, with actual biology, not vibes, exactly how long it lasts and what finally kills it. Stick around until the end, because the way the king most likely dies here is not the dramatic Leviathan showdown everyone imagines. It is quieter, and it is far more certain. Let me introduce the contestants. On one side, we have Tyrannosaurus rex, not the movie version, the real animal reconstructed from dozens of specimens, the most studied of which we call Sue. An adult ran somewhere around 12 to 13 meters long and carried a body mass most modern estimates place between 8 and 9 tons. Its skull alone was over 1.5 meters long, lined with banana-sized teeth set in jaws that generated a bite force at the back teeth estimated around 35,000 newtons. For scale, that is the strongest bite reliably estimated for any land animal that has ever lived, enough to crush bone and leave puncture marks straight through Triceratops' frills. It was a bipedal ambush and pursuit hunter, tuned across tens of millions of years for one arena, solid ground. Powerful hind limbs, dense, heavy bones, a deep, muscular tail for balance, and a respiratory system it shares in principle with modern birds, an air-breathing, one-directional lung that is spectacularly efficient at pulling oxygen out of the atmosphere. Out of the atmosphere. Hold on to that word. The rest of the animal was tuned to match. Its sense of smell was extraordinary. The olfactory bulbs in that skull were proportionally huge, the equipment of an animal that tracked prey and carrion across kilometers of open country by scent carried on moving air. Its eyes faced partly forward, giving it the depth perception of a hunter that judged distance to a target it could see coming. It grew explosively, packing on as much as 2 kilograms a day through its teenage years to reach that adult mass, which means it ran a hungry, high-throughput metabolism that demanded a steady supply of food and oxygen every single day of its life. Every one of those features, the nose, the eyes, the appetite, the growth, was calibrated for a world of air, distance, and dry ground. File that away too, because in a moment we are going to take all of it away at once. On the other side, we have the ocean of Subnautica 2. This is not Earth's sea. It is an alien water world with its own rules, crushing pressure zones that deepen fast, bioluminescent predators built for 3-dimensional ambush, Leviathan-class animals that dwarf anything in our own oceans, and, importantly, almost nothing a land carnivore would recognize as food. Every advantage the king spent 70 million years accumulating was earned somewhere this world does not have, dry land. And this ocean is layered like a trap. The sunlit shallows look almost gentle, warm and bright and full of movement, but the floor falls away quickly into dim zones, then into true dark, and the pressure climbs the whole way down. Each layer has its own residence, and the deeper you go, the larger and stranger they get, until you reach the Leviathan tier, animals measured not in meters but in tens of meters, neutrally buoyant, patient, and perfectly at home in exactly the conditions that would kill a land animal fastest. This is the arena. Now let's see how the champion holds up in it, one system at a time. So the question here is not who wins a fight. A fight assumes the king survives long enough to have one. The real question is, how long the most powerful land predator ever built can persist in an environment that attacks it from every direction at once, starting with the simplest problem of all. Can it even swim? Let me be fair to the king here, because there is a common myth that dinosaurs like this could not go near water at all. That is wrong. We have fossilized trackways showing large theropods paddling in shallows, claw tips scraping the bottom while the body floated. A Tyrannosaurus that stepped into a lagoon would not instantly turn to stone and drop. It could, for a while, keep its head up. But paddling across a shallow river for 30 seconds and surviving in a deep alien ocean are two completely different biological problems, and the gap between them is where the king starts to lose. Start with buoyancy. Tyrannosaurus was a dense, heavily muscled, thick-boned animal. Its skeleton was not the air-filled, weight-saving frame of a seabird. Bring an 8-ton body with that density in the deep water and it does not glide. It fights to stay near the surface, and it loses that fight the moment it tires. There is no swim bladder, no blubber layer, no broad flippers to scull against. The hind limbs that could shatter the ground were built to push down against something solid. In open water there is nothing to push against. Then there is the shape. This animal's entire design routes around a heavy head, a heavy tail, and 2 legs. Underwater, that layout wants to pitch and roll. The forelimbs, those famously small arms, offer nothing for steering. So the king is left doing the only thing it can, an exhausting, thrashing dog paddle, burning enormous amounts of oxygen just to keep its nostrils in the air. There is also the drag to account for, and drag is the hidden tax that finishes tired swimmers. Water is roughly 800 times denser than air. Every movement that costs the king almost nothing on land, a turn of the head, a shift of the tail, now has to shove that wall of water aside. A body shaped for striding, all sharp angles and a broad tail, is close to the worst possible profile for slipping through a fluid that heavy. So even the king's attempts to stay oriented feed back into the same spiral, more effort, more oxygen burned, more heat and lactic acid building in muscles that were already working at their ceiling. On land, Tyrannosaurus could rest. Here, resting means sinking, and sinking means it cannot breathe. There is no idle setting. The animal is either fighting the water or drowning in it, and both of those states are running down the same tank. And that is the trap. Staying afloat in deep water is not free for this body. It is constant maximum effort. A 9-ton animal working that hard has a metabolic demand that goes vertical. Which brings us to the number that really decides this, not how hard it can bite, but how often it has to breathe. Here is the fact that quietly ends most of the king's survival scenarios, and it has nothing to do with teeth. Tyrannosaurus breathed air. Its lungs, like a bird's, needed to cycle atmosphere in and out through the nostrils and windpipe. It had no gills. It had no capacity to extract dissolved oxygen from water the way a fish or a Subnautica Leviathan does. It could not close a valve and switch to an aquatic mode because that mode never existed in its lineage. Every cell in that 8-ton body was waiting on oxygen that could only come from the surface. It is worth understanding just how good that lung was on land, because it makes the failure underwater sharper. In a bird-style system, air does not slosh in and out of dead-end sacs the way it does in ours. It flows one way, through a network of air sacs and hollow bones, so fresh oxygen passes over the gas exchange surface on both the inhale and the exhale. It is one of the most efficient breathing machines evolution has ever produced, and it is a large part of why an animal this size could stay active. But every bit of that efficiency assumes one input, air, delivered to the nostrils. Plumb that same superb system into a world where the nostrils keep going under, and its efficiency stops mattering. A perfect pump with nothing to pump is just a liability that demands oxygen it can no longer reach. Compare that to the animals that actually made a living in deep water on our own planet. A sperm whale can hold its breath for over an hour and dive past 2,000 meters, but it took its ancestors roughly 50 million years of returning to the sea to build that. Collapsible lungs, oxygen stored in muscle, a heartbeat that slows on command, blood volume, and myoglobin loads far beyond anything a land animal carries. The king has none of it. Its body plan is a land animal's, full stop. Ask it to hold its breath, and it manages what you or I might manage, a couple of minutes at rest, far less while thrashing at full effort, and then it must breathe or black out. So the clock is brutal and simple. In Subnautica 2's water, the king has to keep its head at the surface to breathe, while simultaneously burning oxygen at a furious rate just to stay afloat. Those two demands pull against each other. Every wave that washes over its snout, every moment a current drags it under, is a moment it cannot breathe while needing air more than ever. And the ocean of Subnautica 2 does not offer a calm, shallow shelf to rest on. It drops. The deeper zones have no surface within reach at all. The instant the king is pulled below the point where it can reach air, by a current, by exhaustion, by the wake of something enormous passing beneath it, its survival is no longer measured in days. It is measured in the few minutes its brain can run without oxygen. I want to be honest about what this means before we even get to the monsters. On the strength of buoyancy and breathing alone, the most likely outcome for a Tyrannosaurus in this ocean is that it drowns, tired and gasping, long before an alien predator ever closes its jaws. But let's give the king the best case. Say it lands in a shallow, sunlit zone with a surface it can hold. Now it has to share that water. Suppose the king beats the odds on drowning and finds itself in a shallow reef, holding its head above water, furious and alive. Now the locals arrive. And this is where people expect the king to reclaim its crown, because surely the strongest bite on land wins any fight. It does not, and the reason is leverage. That 35,000 Newton bite is a real, measured advantage on land, where the king can plant its feet, drive its whole body mass forward, and pin prey against the ground. Force needs an anchor. Take away the ground, and you take away most of what makes the bite matter. A Tyrannosaurus treading water cannot brace. It cannot lunge with its legs. It cannot use its mass, because in the water its mass is busy just keeping it afloat. Its most dangerous weapon is suddenly a slow, poorly aimed snap delivered by an animal that cannot stop itself from rolling. Now bring in the opposition. Subnautica 2's Leviathan-class predators are built for exactly this arena. They are neutrally buoyant, so none of their energy is wasted staying up. They move in 3 dimensions, above, below, behind, while the king can only face one direction and paddle. Many of them match or exceed the king's mass, and every gram of it is committed to the attack rather than to survival. A Reaper-type Leviathan does not need a stronger bite than the king. It needs to hit from below, once, while the king is blind and off balance. There is a timing problem stacked on top of the leverage problem too. A strike underwater is slow. Pushing a 1.5 meter skull through water 800 times denser than air turns a lightning-fast land snap into a labored telegraph swing that any neutrally buoyant predator can simply drift away from. Meanwhile, the king has to keep part of its attention on the surface, on staying up, on breathing. Its opponents have no such split. They can circle below it indefinitely, pick their moment, and strike along the one axis the king can never watch, straight up from beneath into a belly it cannot armor or turn away. So the matchup is not king versus challenger. It is a grounded champion forced to box while drowning, against opponents who own the water column completely. If it comes to a fight, the king loses not because it is weak, but because every strength it has was designed for a floor that this ocean does not have. But say it survives even that. Say it fends off the first attacker with one lucky snap and drives it off. It still has a problem that no amount of bite force can solve. It has to eat. An 8-ton predator is a furnace. To keep a body that size running, Tyrannosaurus needed to bring down large prey regularly. We're talking hundreds of kilograms of meat over a stretch of days, taken from animals it could chase across open ground and pin with its weight. Put a rough number on it. An active multi-ton predator has a daily energy budget that runs into the tens of thousands of calories. A demand it met on land by taking down large prey every few days and living off the reserves in between. That entire strategy depends on 2 things. This ocean removes the ability to catch the food and the ability to rest while digesting it. Here, the king burns energy faster than ever just staying afloat while taking in nothing at all. None of that translates. There is no ground to chase across. There is no terrestrial prey to chase. Everything edible in Subnautica 2's ocean is a swimmer, and the king cannot catch a swimmer. It has no speed underwater, no maneuverability, no ambush cover that works in 3 dimensions. Watching fast alien fish flick past just out of reach, the most powerful jaws in natural history close on nothing but water. And even if it's somehow clamped down on something, digestion is not free. Processing a large meal draws blood and energy inward and leaves an animal sluggish, which on land is a safe luxury and here is a death sentence. The king starves in the middle of an ocean full of food it physically cannot reach, and it starves faster than it would on land because the water is stealing its energy the whole time. Then stack the environment on top of hunger. Descend even a little in this world and the pressure climbs fast, a load the king's air-filled body and open sinuses were never built to take. The temperature in the deeper and darker zones drops toward numbers that would sap a large ectothermic leaning body's strength and slow it down exactly when it can least afford to be slow. And the biology itself is alien. Much of what floats past may be toxic, indigestible, or actively defended in ways nothing in the king's 70 million year resume prepared it for. A creature that has never met a venom it evolved alongside has no answer for one. Notice the pattern: buoyancy, breathing, leverage, feeding, pressure, cold, alien chemistry. These are not one threat. They are 6 or 7 separate roads, and every single one of them leads to the same place. That convergence is what makes this verdict so lopsided. It is not that the king is likely to die, it is that almost nothing about this ocean lets it live. But there is one more system to strip away, and it is the one people almost never think about because it fails silently. Everything the king did as a hunter began with information. Remember those huge olfactory bulbs and forward-facing eyes? On land, this was an animal that smelled a carcass on the wind from far off and judged the exact distance to a moving target across open ground. Its whole predatory strategy ran on senses tuned to air and light and distance. Take it underwater and that toolkit quietly goes dark. Airborne scent tracking simply does not work when the medium is water. The chemistry of smelling in water is a different problem, one that fish and marine predators solve with dedicated equipment the king does not have. Its eyes are built to focus in air. Submerged, the way light bends changes, and a land eye tends to go badly out of focus. And in the dim and dark zones of this ocean, there is barely any light to focus on in the first place. Now compare that to what it is up against. The predators of Subnautica 2 evolved for exactly this world. Many aquatic hunters read their surroundings through senses. A land animal has no version of it all. Pressure and motion detected along the flanks. The faint electric fields thrown off by a struggling body, echoes bouncing back through the dark. To that kind of hunter, a thrashing, oxygen-starved 8-ton animal at the surface is not hidden. It is the loudest thing in the sea, broadcasting its exact position with every panic stroke. So the king isn't just outmatched physically, it is effectively blind and deaf in a world of predators that can sense it perfectly. It cannot find prey, and it cannot detect the thing rising toward it until that thing arrives. A hunter that has lost its senses is no longer a hunter. It is prey that happens to have big teeth, so let me score it. When I rate an animal's survival for this series, I am not asking whether it is impressive. Tyrannosaurus rex is one of the most impressive predators that ever drew breath, and nothing here takes that away. I am asking a colder question, dropped into this specific world, cold, with no adaptation and no time to evolve one. How likely is it to still be alive a week later? Weigh it honestly, round by round. Swimming, the body sinks and exhausts itself. Staying up, a fail. Breathing, an air-only lung with no aquatic mode and a 2-minute ceiling, a hard fail, and probably the one that kills it first. Combat, real bite force, no leverage to deliver it, struck from angles it cannot watch, a fail. Feeding, cannot catch a single thing in an ocean of food, a fail. Senses, blind and deaf against predators that read it perfectly, a fail. Environment, pressure, and cold and alien chemistry stacked on top, a fail. That is a clean sweep in the wrong direction. There is no column on the scorecard where the king comes out ahead, and several where it is beaten before it even engages. That leaves me scoring the Tyrannosaurus, a critically non-viable survival rating of 1 out of 10. And I want to be exact about that 1 point, because it is not 0. The 1 point is the narrow, generous scenario where the king lands in the shallowest, calmest, warmest sunlit water, keeps its head up, and lives for a handful of hours before exhaustion or the first Leviathan finds it. That is the ceiling. That is the best day a Tyrannosaurus rex ever has in Subnautica 2. A few hours of treading water in a world that was going to kill it no matter which way it turned. Everything above that 1 point on the scale would require the animal to change what it fundamentally is, to grow gills, to rebuild its bones, to rewire its senses. Evolution can do all of that, given enough time and pressure. It cannot do any of it in an afternoon, and an afternoon is roughly all the time the king has. Honesty over hype. The land's greatest king does not conquer this ocean. It barely gets to meet it. There is a lesson buried in that scorecard, and it is the thing I find genuinely fascinating about matchups like this one. Power is not a property an animal carries around with it. It is a relationship between a body and a world. Tyrannosaurus rex was the most dangerous thing alive, not because of some absolute quality of menace, but because its body and its environment fit together perfectly. The weight, the bite, the legs, the lungs, all tuned to solid ground under an open sky. Move that same body one environment over, into water it was never shaped for, and every advantage inverts. The crushing bite becomes a clumsy snap. The mighty legs become dead weight. The efficient lungs become a countdown. The king did not get weaker on the trip to Subnautica. 2. The world simply stopped rewarding the things it was good at, and that is why the apex predator of one world can become the most fragile animal in another without changing a single cell. Run the experiment in reverse and the point lands just as hard. Take one of those Subnautica Leviathans, an animal that rules the crushing deep, that senses electric fields and moves like liquid through the dark, and stranded on the king's floodplain under an open sky. All that mastery collapses instantly. It cannot breathe the air, it cannot move its bulk without water to carry it, its finely tuned deep-sea senses read nothing useful, and it suffocates under its own weight in minutes. The ocean's champion is as helpless on land as the land's champion is at sea. Neither one is weak. Each is simply exquisitely fitted to a single world, and catastrophically wrong for the other. Specialization is a bargain. The more perfectly an animal fits one environment, the more completely it breaks when you move it. Tyrannosaurus rex paid that price on land in its favor for 70 million years. Subnautica 2 is just where the bill comes due. So the next time something is called the deadliest creature that ever lived, it's worth asking the follow-up question, deadliest where? Because put almost anything in the wrong ocean and the answer changes fast. Until next time, stay curious and I'll see you all in the next video.